All right, looks like we're good to rock and roll. So, Kane Feeblecorn here. Uh, been doing this last podcast.
Yep, I'm Sarah Steveling.
And I'm Timothy Thompson.
All right, should we say Willie did not make it, so we'll throw that out there. He's in our group. So the first topic we can go on, it was the Manchester United case study that we did last week, I believe. Does anyone have anything on that first? It was kind of like the stuff with the superstar effect and like the export markets and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying. Gosh, I'm trying to. I just looked at it. I'm trying to remember back to what it was.
So it was about General Motors and another major
Yes.
company. I mean, a lot of companies do that. They find a sports team that is widely popular as well as globally popular, because I think they did a survey over 39 countries and over 54,000 people surveyed, and they said that they probably have estimated around 300 and I think it was 69 million fans around the world. So when you have these major companies that see those like amounts of fans, they think, well, if I sponsor that team or if my name is out there, my logo is out there, they think the return on investment is going to be higher than what they have to pay that team just to put their logo out there.
Yeah, and that to me that concept makes a whole lot of sense. Like you would think, given the global reach of soccer, that would be, the big goal. And I'd be interested to see the exact numbers on what return um, these companies get in soccer, but it'd also be interesting to compare to other professional sports as well. But to me, if a professional soccer team or any professional team can secure like two major global sponsorships, like that is kind of what sets the precedent. To me, I feel like a lot of them really don't focus on having multiple really high names, but if they can secure two, three top names in the globe, then they're pretty well set. And I feel like that sets those companies up for success as well in their minds.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes. I kind of want to tie that to like the video response we did with that week too, with the I can't remember the name of the soccer team, but how they were one of the most like successful financial teams that year because of the way they were able to get sponsorships. I think they had Adidas and stuff like that, which they're one of the best soccer teams with getting that kind of stuff, and also commercialize, like being able to commercialize their players and get them in commercials. Because I mean, you can check all around, like soccer probably isn't the biggest sport that you're going to see athletes promoting products. It's probably not, at least not in America, because that's not something you really see. You're more likely to see maybe a football star or a basketball star, but I think you make a good point. Like being able to secure those companies for those teams is definitely a little more difficult. So when they can do it, it really gives them a big benefit.
Yeah, I think kind of going back into that case study, from what I remember, is that they'd had those two major sponsors since like the beginning of the team. Like they'd had them for 20 plus years. I think that just shows commitment to each other, like the sponsorship to the team the sponsorship. Then also that there has to be some sort of benefit on both sides if they've kept that sponsorship for so long.
I mean, I just kind of think in a way like it's a little unfair to like the smaller companies. So like these are mega companies. These companies make millions, maybe billions of dollars, and they have these funds to be able to sponsor these sports teams. And sometimes I just like think about it. It's like, what about those like small town companies, maybe family owned companies? Like, where's the like how are they able to even like try getting like a sponsorship with not even like say a national team, but like maybe just like a local team? Still, there's these companies that have the funds like over just pay, and like obviously the team's going to choose the team that gives them the most money, because it's just like it helps them obviously fund their sporting events as well as their equipment, keeping everything up on upkeep.
I think something that I don't think about a whole lot too, but just kind of came to my mind is that like these major sponsors, like not necessarily Adidas, but like Coca-Cola, like they own,
Oh, yeah.
like they monopolize the market so much that I feel like we think, oh, well, why don't they have these smaller companies? Well, to me, that's probably because Coca-Cola owns some of those companies. So that while they don't necessarily have the presence from that specific company, Coca-Cola still, still has that presence, I guess, if that makes sense.
And then yeah, they're also buying out. You guys probably have heard of Prime? That's by like KSI and Logan Paul that made that. There's the talks of them buying out them as well. So it's like I feel like Coca-Cola has just like an advantage over any other soft product because they just make so much. And that's also kind of like Anheuser-Busch. They make so many different types of beers. It's not just Busch Light, it's just not Budweiser, but they have every other type of beer they make. So it's just kind of like they own, in a way, they're not supposed to have a monopoly, but they kind of do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree.
Yeah, they kind of just take those smaller companies like under their wing and like kind of flow them under the radar compared to theirs, but definitely makes it difficult. Does anyone have anything else on the case study they wanted to add? The next topic would be like soccer in America compared to like other countries as kind of how it's growing over here or like the lack of compared to other countries.
Yeah, I think we've seen, and I've kind of seen it. So I work with collegiate soccer, and as an athletic trainer, so I hear a lot of soccer talk, and soccer is growing in America. But the one thing I continue to go back to is the fact that in America we have so much of a stronger presence in professional teams. So whereas
Mhm.
like kind of like I feel like in Europe there's just it's kind of like soccer, soccer, soccer. Some smaller sports that are still relatively popular, but soccer is just kind of that one thing that kind of is head and heels with everything. Whereas the United States, you have the NBA, you have the NFL, you have the NHL, you have a significant impact from all these other professional leagues. And I feel like it's going to continue to limit soccer's growth, and I still think soccer will continue to grow, but I'm not sure if it'll ever reach the status it has in Europe and other
Mhm.
places.
Yeah, I feel like Europe has this like a bunch of clubs, and like I'm not big into soccer. In my hometown, we didn't have soccer, so it's a sport I really never played. But kind of just now taking like some classes, going through college. Like I've talked to soccer players, and that's like one thing I feel like the U.S. lacks is like clubs, leagues, because like over there, Barcelona, Manchester, all these clubs that are just like huge. They're not like they're professional teams, but they're not national teams. I feel like the only sports team that's soccer team that I know from the United States is the USA national team. That's it.
Mhm.
I feel like I don't know any other clubs, any other leagues other than maybe rec leagues, like intramural leagues. That's about it.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I definitely think if soccer wants to grow here, we need to add some of those smaller leagues, especially for kids out of like college or collegiate soccer. Like it can be really tough for them to figure out their next move, especially if they're from America, since you kind of just have to go right from college to the national team if you want to be in one of those. There's not really any medium ground to get started somewhere else. Like all the other sports, we have like AAA baseball or stuff like that where players can build up, but soccer doesn't really have anything like that. You just have to be one of the best, and you have no room to like move up in the ranks. Is kind of how I'm trying to say that. Like unlike how you said in Europe, like there's different ranks and kids can take their time to get up. And hi, Willie.
Hi, how you doing?
Hey, Willie.
Good. How are
Good,
you?
good. I'm good. I'm sorry I'm late. I had a procedure, colonoscopy today, and so I'm kind of a little lethargic a little bit. So y'all have to excuse me.
No, no
No
worries,
worries.
no worries at all. But no, actually, so interesting what you guys just said about like soccer and like growing in the ranks. Warburg actually had one of our soccer players. They actually just started like an arena soccer league. It's like considered like a minor league team, and like that's the first it's their first year, and it's kind of the first I've ever heard of like a smaller professional minor league style team in soccer. Let alone in the United States, but like more so even in the Midwest. I thought that was pretty cool to see. I think that'll definitely help with exposure post
Mhm.
college to then be able to form, make that, whether it's a national team or like a smaller professional team in the United States.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
concur. Yeah, I concur. One thing about it is, I noticed when I was over in Europe, I mean, soccer was a big thing, like football over there, and if we're going to push that sport, we're starting in the right direction with pushing it. I concur with you guys, pushing it in the little league, um, making it, probably perhaps, pushing the professional league here in the States a little more. And a lot of times so people can understand it because I myself personally, I don't understand soccer. I mean, I'm trying to learn first I'm trying to relate that to like the NFL, and it's like 80 minutes, so it's something. So I agree with you guys on that
No,
one.
it's soccer. Soccer's a tough. It's relatively the game itself isn't that confusing, but once you start breaking down like schemes, like I'm going into year 3 of college soccer. I'm still every time I feel like I know something, it's just back over top of my head next time. So
Wow,
yeah,
okay.
it's I think the World Cup was probably one of the first professional soccer games I've watched in a while. Not being around these professionally, like, but I mean, at the same time, half of our soccer team out here at Upper Iowa is international, maybe more, since that's where most of those really strong players come from. I think it's really interesting to see how many international students from that sport will come over, since you got a good shot of playing collegiately here, but then they have to go back to play professionally at their. Does anybody else have anything on soccer in America?
I mean, I would also kind of add. So I feel like what Kaden was and both also you, Sarah, was listening earlier about soccer not really having that level where you can build up. Because I feel like basketball has that, but they also, I feel like a lot of players after college they go play in China or
Exactly.
across in Asia,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
feel like maybe they have like a contract that works really well. So like I was kind of thinking about like tying in like with student teaching when went through student teaching. We have good contracts through our university through like Houston, Texas, Arizona. We have Europe, we have Asia, and then we just have these good contracts. So I was thinking maybe that there was like a way that like colleges could maybe like start contracts with, you know, professional teams or just maybe even just like rec teams, other like clubs in like Europe or Asia like that, where like soccer is more like popular. So I wouldn't say soccer is not that popular in the United States, but I feel like it's not the most popular.
No, I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree too. I think the problem is the competing with the NFL and the NBA and minor league baseball because it's been here so long, and and one thing about it, like for instance, I'm gonna use the NFL for an example. They had the USFL for an example, and they folded because they couldn't compete. Then you got the XFL, they folded, now they're back again. It's just it's going to take a lot of work to I think as far as competition wise, and you got to take into account the TV ratings and things like that.
Absolutely.
Now, to bounce off that, do you guys think it's probably the same way for how the NFL and like basketball over are in Europe? Like how we're trying to put our football over there? Do you think that's probably the same thing? Like do you think it's just switched like roles?
I think
Okay.
I would say it's similar. I wouldn't I would say it's a little bit more of a drastic change for us to really
Yeah.
implement football, especially in Europe. But I do think there's definitely going to be some comparison in how I think, if I think the NFL can take some, ideas from what Europe has done with like soccer in the United States. So I think there's some similarities. I think football will be just a little bit more dramatic in terms of, there's like significant lack of presence in Europe versus soccer's, media, I would say a little higher than mediocre presence, in the United States.
I think the United States should also like want to host like big clubs over in Europe, like host events in the United States to help like gain awareness that hey, soccer is a popular sport, and I feel like it has like there's a need for it in the United States, need for those clubs, need for those leagues. So then those athletes that do play in college can work their way up to the professional or other types of levels.
No,
Let me
I
ask you,
like that idea.
let me ask you guys a question. Do you think that politics plays a part in soccer being prevalent in the United States versus the other sports that's already here? No.
I mean, I feel like it kind of does, but not so much. I mean, I feel like they know that the NFL, the NBA are the two number one sports, I would say. But I also say the golf is pretty big too. But I feel like
Yes.
those are like there's well known. They generate a lot of revenue, and I feel like maybe I don't know what the government would want to have like an input on like, hey, we don't want another sport. We have two sports that already do very well, like that generate a lot. Maybe like that's why they're trying to shift it over. Maybe they're trying to gain the focus of, hey, these are American sports, and then let's put them over in Europe, put them over in China, Mexico, and all the other countries.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think I think it has less to do with politics specifically, and it's more to do with the foundation that's already present in the United
Mm.
States for the other major sports.
Yeah, I was
Understand.
gonna go based off like history, like just the past of how it's grown. Okay, do we want to move into what we think the sport industry will look like in 2030? So the next like 5, 10 years, what we think sports will look like?
First, I like to say I feel like the main thing I feel like sports betting has taken off dramatically, and as well as like the NI deals that like college students now can like attain. So I feel like there's a lot more like potential for money, deals, contracts, and I feel like there's also a lot more potential for I want to say not like like scandalous things happening, sports, like, tampering, shaving points. I feel like there's this, like, I feel like there might be a little bit more of an issue now with the sports betting be very popular now.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on the sports betting. I mean, just the last weekend with like the Super Bowl, I think it's crazy. You see people betting on heads and tails on the coin flip, or the Gatorade that's going to be poured on the coach. Like, I could see that being not just a Super Bowl anymore. Like, I could see that going into just betting on the coin flip for any game, or like stuff like that. I also remember you could bet on the songs you thought Rihanna was going to sing. Like, some of that stuff I never would have thought you could bet on for sports, but I could definitely see that like taking off and going even farther than, like, I'm sure there's more things you can bet on than just those. But
I did
Yeah,
bet
I
on the Gatorade. I bet on the Gatorade.
did you win?
No, I lost. I bet.
I guess kind of looking ahead, something that I think will continue to grow. I think with the women's presence in sports will continue to grow. I think we've really seen that the last couple of years, and as looks like Tim is too. I'm a big Iowa fan, so you have Caitlin Clark, who's in my mind no doubt National Player of the Year. But like you're going to continue to see and develop more women of that stature. I think that's just going to continue to grow sports. I mean, we're seeing NCAA women's basketball games sell out with 14,000 plus fans, which hasn't been seen like on a regular basis for almost ever, I guess. So I think that'll continue to grow, and not only basketball, but that will kind of transfer to other professional sports as well on the women's side.
I think I'm of the opinion that we're seeing a transformation right before our eyes with where sports is going and where it will be 25 years later. One of the things I want to use is the NIL deal. I'm kind of afraid that it's going to, and I understand that, players should, probably get some compensation in college or whatever. But what I'm concerned about with that is that I think the coaches will lose command and control of the team, possibly with players, getting angry because, oh, you're not going to play me, so I'm going to enter the transfer portal, or they're mouthing off at the coach and it's total disrespect. So I think the coaches may get to a point where they lose control of the team. As far as the NFL and other professional sports, as we said now, the players, in my opinion, aren't as disciplined as they was back in the day, with some of the stuff they're wearing and stuff they're doing. Like, for instance, I don't know if you guys watched the Super Bowl with Antonio Brown, where he took off his shoulder pads and slung them in the bleachers. He walked off of the field, and that's kind of what I see in my eyes. That if we're not careful and don't get a hand on that sports may kind of decline to a point where the TV ratings are actually going to drop. A lot of my coworkers and I, we discussed, for an example, they claim they don't watch the NFL anymore, for an example, because of Colin Kaepernick kneeling for the national anthem, for an example. They refuse to, watch it because of that, and I don't like that either. But that's some of the things that, the eyes that I'm looking at as far as where sports going now. And one last thing, I'm a Jacksonville Jaguar fan, right? And we just got last year Kevin Ridley, who was suspended for betting on sports, and now he applied for reinstatement. So those are some of the things that concerns me with that, as far as are games going to be fixed, or is players going to intentionally sandbag to try to cover the point spread, doesn't so.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I think whether it's transfer portal, NIL, team culture, like I think that's so much. Like, there's just so much up in the air, and I think I don't even know if it's even possible to predict what it's going to look like, because that's like at this point it can just go so many different ways. It can go really positive, but it can also go really negative in the same sense.
Yes.
Yeah. Kind of to go off what you said about like Kaepernick, you also saw it like with the women's national team when they won the World Cup a couple years ago. So I could see sports maybe, although it may not be awesome, but it could become more political, and like people might understand that maybe you could use sports as like a way to spread a movement which is kind of what people were trying to do. Maybe people will start to understand the power of sports and how easy it is to use them to spread a message or like spread something across. And so many people in America watch them, and that could go positively or negatively. Like you said, it could lose fans. Like fans could stop watching if things got too political or people tried to put the wrong movement into a sport they didn't necessarily want to see. So I think that could be something to keep an eye out in the next couple of years, especially with another election in a couple of years. That could be a big thing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Does anybody else have anything on the sports in 2030 or future of sport? Then we are officially on the last one of just any other issues we feel are important in global sport right now. So anything kind of that we've seen maybe in the news or anything?
I would say I wouldn't say it's a problem, but I would say the most controversial, I think, the thing that's going around globally in sports is about transgender athletes. I mean, I'm going to break the ice on it because, I mean, some people don't want to talk about it, but
Yeah.
it's happening. It's 2023. I mean, we got to get prepared for it because it's happening. We're already seeing it in colleges. We're seeing it at younger ages. We're also seeing it at a professional level, Olympic level. There's talks of just like what to do because obviously a man transitioned to a female transitioned to a male. It's just there's a lot of different hormones going through. There's a lot of different just through the transition of just even like being in like same facility as female as a male. Because like I was just actually watching the news lately and it was about Leah Thomas, the swimmer. That a lot of females did not feel comfortable with having a male in the locker room with them at the same time. And so I've kind of done a little research myself, and I don't know if that's a reliable source or not, but some of them talked about just having, which this could be a possibility. So maybe even like in the future, this could tie into the last question of a transgender like league. Like that's like I mean, it's not to segregate them or to exclude them from the events, but it's just that they have not enough information yet to know if maybe there is an athletic advantage from a male going to becoming a female or a female becoming a male.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead. I can go ahead.
Okay. Oh no. Okay. I'm sorry. Thanks. I'm, this. I'm glad you brought this up, and I'm telling you, this is very disturbing to me. Our governor in the state of Florida, Ron DeSantis, does not recognize this transgender male that smoked all the women in the swimming nationals, and the state of Florida does not recognize the transgender male as winning a gold medal in the women's event. And the bottom line is that with that, you can't change DNA and the body makeup. I mean, you can do the surgeries and to have the appearance, but in the end of the day, that's still a man competing against women that and going to have the advantage. I don't know any scientific surgeries or anything they can do to make the playing field even. And I was listening to a retired judge was talking about the same issue, and his daughter was on a wrestling team and was forced to wrestle a transgender male. The end result, this young lady ended up with broken ribs, jaw broken, crushed clavicle. And I mean, she got smoked out there because you were technically wrestling a male. And this guy went on to beat everybody in the state with ease, probably in the first round. And I just don't, I think it's actually not fair for women. Okay, they don't have a fair advantage. And at the end of the day, if they continue to go in this direction, there won't be very many women, in my opinion, getting their just due. It's when it mellows or whatever, because you're having to compete with the man. I heard this one other conversation about someone made the suggestion that maybe they should actually like in the NBA, for an example, or Major League Baseball, have women just go and try out for teams and play. You know what I'm saying? So, and one of them joked about, for example, is NBA. What if Shaquille O'Neal decided one day to be a transgender and then this guy's 7'1", pretty much 350, 375, whatever, and he's gonna have to go play with women. That's not fair at all. You
Yeah, I
know,
think
so
honestly, I think fairness is kind of the biggest issue with that. And I really don't think there's a good way to go about it, but there has to be some sort of balance of competitive nature versus safety versus, just the athletic ability in general. So yeah, I don't think there's a great answer for it, but that could just that competitive aspect of that sport and the specific individual too has to be taken into account in my mind.
Yeah. I think
Mhm.
I think I can say this as the woman of our podcast group. It definitely kind of feels like you're taken down a step. Like if you just know that's who you're competing against, you can feel a lot less driven to even compete in the first place. Like I know a lot of women like in cross country in my hometown that stopped running in high school because there were some transgenders in the league that were just smoking everybody, so they lost their competitive drive. Like they didn't even want to compete if they didn't feel they had a chance to win. And I know I might be the same way. I mean, I'd be worried about my safety if someone told me a 6'5" male was going to come play women's volleyball with a net that's 3 feet lower and hit it as hard as they could at my face. Like I probably wouldn't want to play. Like that probably wouldn't make me feel like I was in a safe or fair environment. So it's definitely a tricky balance because, yeah, it gets to the point where with our political world right now, you don't like it's not fair to exclude anybody from the sport, but it's also not fair to let someone with a biological, like genetic advantage just roll through competition, especially in like terms of just having the genetics to do so. Like,
No, absolutely.
And that's why I'm kind of really glad. So I was a wrestler throughout like my whole life until college. I wrestled at intramurals during at UNI. But like when I was in wrestling, I would have to wrestle girls. I've wrestled girls before, and at a point, it feels difficult to want to do like the exact same moves on a male as well as on a female because of personal. I mean, obviously, you want to be courteous, but you also don't want to you already understand that in a way that males have more FFM, fat-free mass, that I know that I am stronger in a sense. But that's why I'm so glad that Iowa has like divided in a way the girls and guys wrestlers. There's girls wrestling meets now as well as the girls state tournament. And the thing is that no girls have had any issue with that. They have not said, "Oh no, I want to wrestle boys." All the girls are like, "I'm so happy that I can have my own team and wrestle against girls." Because wrestling against guys, like I've known a couple girls that have made it say before they had these the women's state wrestling finals, and I've known a couple girls that have made it up there. But again, usually in a way, it's always the male that finished first with wrestling. But so then that's why I've talked to them, and one of my buddies, he's a coach for the girls wrestling at Nevada, Iowa, and they've just all have said that they're happier that they have their own league now, is that they don't have to wrestle boys because they just know that in a sense that yes, I can beat some of the boys, but I'm not going to beat all the boys.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
we're
that's
actually hold on. We're running out of time here on the
no, you're good.
on the free version of Zoom. So, does anyone have any final comments before we run out of time tonight?
No, I think we covered it all, at least everything that was on the checklist for today.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for a good discussion, and I'll stop recording here a second.